welcome to the video lecture on learning outcomes. My name is Blaženka Divjak and I'm going to work with you in this video lecture. And since we are talking about learning outcomes, it is advisable to list the learning outcomes of this video lecture at the beginning. So I assume that at the end of this video lecture, you will be able to make a distinction between professional and generic learning outcomes. Then to describe the categories of knowledge according to the revised Bloom taxonomy. Then to write at least one learning outcome in your area of expertise. So let us start. So at the beginning, it is always good to look at the definitions, even though it is better in some cases to discuss some examples from the real world, but here we are going to start with the definitions. So according to the ECTS guide from 2015, the definition of learning outcome is, as you can see here on the slide, statements of what a learner knows, understands, and is able to do on a completion of a learning process. And by acquiring learning outcomes, a learner acquires competencies as the ability to use knowledge, skills, but also personal, social, and methodological abilities in order to work or study, but also to use it for professional and personal development. We distinguish between subject-specific learning outcomes and generic learning outcomes. So subject-specific learning outcomes is usually professional and related to the field of expertise. For example, if you're a mathematician, then to mathematics. If you are a philosopher, to philosophy. But also, there are some transversal or sometimes we call it key competencies or generic skills, or there is also a big, I would say, intersection between the generic skills and 21st century skills. So we can say that we need some basic digital skills in order to work in our profession, but also to participate in democratic processes in society as well. So it's something that is transversal, horizontal. And then if you look at the key competencies or generic learning outcomes, we can define them as they are defined in key competencies for lifelong learning from European Union 2018. And it is defined there as a combination of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. And in this document, they are distinguished between 8 groups of key competencies, starting with, you can see here, multilingual competencies, then personal and social competencies, as well as ability and competence to learn how to learn. So to participate in lifelong learning. And then citizenship competence, it means that we as citizens need a competence to participate in democratic processes, but also in certain citizenships, obligations, duties, and take our own rights in our own hands as well. Very important entrepreneurship competence here, not just to open the company or some SME, but also to understand what does it mean to work in some environment that is project-based or use projects in our own life. So it is a very broad entrepreneurship competence. Cultural awareness and expression competence, as well as digital competence that is very important in the 21st century. And then a mathematical competence and STEM competence, so competence in science, technology, and engineering, and finally literacy competence. So these are these 8 groups. Of course, there can be some different divisions and different groupings, but here I think that it's good to mention at least one of them. And now it's time for quiz on learning outcome. So consider the following statements and argue whether they are learning outcomes. I would like to ask you to pause the video and take a few minutes and think if these statements can be learning outcomes. And in order to decide on that, you can again read the definition of a learning outcome to be familiar with the definition and then to decide if these 8 statements are actually learning outcomes.